Hello, my lovely death disciples. I am going to be making some more lighthearted videos later on today, but as of right now, for this video, I wanted to talk about a serious issue as of right now that affects something that I have passionately done research on for a good few years, really. And it involves sort of more of the injustice of the criminal justice system that we are currently working with. And for this video, I want to talk about a man by the name of Dustin Higgs. And Dustin Higgs was a man who was the 13th and also the final member on death row to be executed under the Trump administration. Now, if you don't know who Dustin Higgs is, Dustin Higgs was a man who was accused of being an accomplice in the murder of 3 women by the name of Tangi Jackson, Tamika Black, and Michonne Chin, all women who were working or involved with working with children, either as teachers or as directors of children's choirs. They had been riding in a van with Willis Haynes and Dustin Higgs. And Dustin Higgs was driving the van, but it was Willis Haynes who actually committed the murder of those 3 women. When he pulled out a gun and he shot all 3 women. And Dustin Higgs was accused of being an accomplice for this murder, as I just mentioned before. And the judgment that the jurors and the prosecutors made for Dustin Higgs was that, well, I don't know how much involvement the jurors had with. I know that they convicted him as guilty, but as for the punishment, I believe that was more the prosecutors than the judge. But the punishment that was carried out for these 2 men was that Willis Haynes, despite having actually committed the murder, was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 45 years. So he isn't technically free, but at the same time, the punishment that Dustin Higgs got was that he was to be executed on death row. And he was recently executed as of now. And unfortunately, it is too late to save him. I actually signed a petition for him to be saved. And but the reason people convicted him to be sentenced to death row was because of the fact that there was an argument made about Dustin Higgs where it was believed that he actually threatened Willis Haynes to murder these women. At the time, Dustin Higgs was 23, Willis Haynes was 18. So, of course, people believed in the idea that, of course, Dustin Higgs actually threatened to and coerced Willis Haynes to actually commit the murder. But the problem with that argument was that it was Willis Haynes himself who actually admitted that Dustin Higgs did not actually coerce or threaten him to commit the murder, that he had no involvement. And Dustin Higgs, of course, himself said that he never actually said to kill the women, nor did he want the women to be killed. He was simply just driving the van. But Willis Haynes, again, he was the one that shot the women, and he had no coercion. He was not threatened. But there is a clear difference in the way that justice was carried out for these 2 people. And, of course, yes, Dustin Higgs was a black man. And it clearly shows as a very important example for this case that he is not the only one who was unjustly put on death row. As I have learned about the death row penalty and how much it actually affects people, while before in my earlier years, even up to high school, I had actually believed there was a purpose to the death penalty and that it actually was there for a reason to get rid of people who simply just could not be alive, who did not deserve to be alive. But as I started to learn more and more about what the death penalty was about and what it had actually done, by actually learning about the fact that 50% of the time, we had learned that those who had been sentenced to death row did not actually deserve the sentence, that they were actually innocent of the crime that they were accused of, And Dustin Higgs is now another example to show that the death penalty has been used on innocent men and women, and that they have been used improperly to carry out unjust services, basically. And that there is, in fact, a reason as to why people are struggling against the death penalty, that not only is it seen as humane, inhumane, but also due to the fact that it has sentenced at least half of the people who were innocent of their crimes to their deaths. And it's disheartening, really, to see that this is a thing that happens. And it definitely made me question whether we actually should have committed to the death penalty, really. And what's even more to say is that, as I did more research on this issue, especially for this case, and it was the fact that even if Dustin Higgs had actually, that there was another argument as to why there was a belief that he did coerce Willis Haynes, or that he was involved in the murder, was the fact that even if he admitted that he was at the crime, because he didn't admit it at first, but he was ratted out by Willis Haynes and another man by the name of, let me see if I can find him. And don't worry, I will be showing the sources that I am using. By the name of Victor Gloria, who were both arrested for drug charges at the same time. Victor Gloria had actually confessed that they were present for the crime. But the fact that the thing about Dustin Higgs was that even if he did admit to being there at the crime, he would have still been an accomplice. He was there, and he was driving the van, and the fact of the matter is that he still would have been sentenced to death row. And it's that fact alone that really shows how inefficient our use of being able to have the death row penalty be used, is that Dustin Higgs did not commit the crime. The problem of the matter is that he just so happened to have been driving the van when Willis Haynes pulled out the gun and shot all three women. And it's this sign of ineptitude for the death penalty that shows that it is not something that we can continue to do, especially in the way that it is being used, not only to kill innocent people, but also as a way of saying some people may not be willing to admit to a crime that even happened due to the fact that they might just be put on death row simply for just being there. And also due to the fact that the murderer is still alive, while the one who just so happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time is the one that gets the full punishment of losing his life. And it's really disheartening to see, really, the fact that not only I had supported that measure before, because I actually thought it was something that was necessary, like it was a necessary evil, but then to actually see this thing that I believed was a necessary evil, and then to also be used on innocent people who did no wrong, also as a measure of saying, like, you cannot nor should you be allowed to confess to this crime, because then you will be put on death row for having in some way or another been a part of that crime, even if it was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And then even further, to basically know that there would also... It's also kind of disheartening because I wanted to be a part of the criminal justice system. There was a time where I wanted to actually be a police officer, even while I was in college, because I thought there was a way that I could have actually been serving injustice. But not only has Black Lives Matter actually shown me that being an officer of the law wouldn't have actually worked for me, especially considering the fact that if I had shown any sort of support for Black Lives Matter, I would have been fired, as many other officers had when they showed support for Black Lives Matter. But it's also because of the fact that I would have been a part of a system that even if I happened to have been a part of, I never would have been able to actually reform, because at this point I don't even know if there's really a way that it can be reformed because of how ingrained this kind of system is when it comes to the treatment of even compliant citizens of America who just so happen to be members of racial or ethnic minorities, of Black Americans, of Latino Hispanic Americans, of basically anyone who happened to be of a darker shade of skin color, that even when they were compliant in their arrests, they were still given unfair treatment and abusive treatment, really. And also to understand how deeply affected that it has on our prison systems. Most of the members of prisons are filled with members of racial or ethnic minorities. And while, of course, yes, there are members of whites who are imprisoned, more than often it is members of racial or ethnic minorities, mostly Latino and Hispanic or Black Americans, who had been arrested who would be sentenced for over 5 years in prison, and it would be on nonviolent drug crimes, mostly. And it's basically just seeing the miscarriage of justice on a constant basis, really, that really had me change my opinion on the criminal justice system, on whether it could actually be made into a better system in some way or another. And I do think there is a way for it to be done. It's just at the same time, the system itself has to be willing in order to take that change. And right now, it is unwilling to do that. So from this point onward, I'm really uncertain as to how it can be done. But the best I can do as of right now is point out the issues that we have in the criminal justice system. And I also wanted to be able to point out, for the sake of those that have gone under the terrible, brutal treatment of police brutality to the point of where they even lost their lives, and also the miscarriages of the criminal justice system, that we still need to continue pointing it out. We do still need to make certain about the fact that there is a miscarriage of justice in this land of the free, home of the brave, that that we are supposed to pride ourselves on our desire for justice, and yet at the same time, there is so much injustice that goes on in our own country. And this is a country I'm supposed to feel pride in, that I was raised to have a lot of pride in. By my father, mostly. And basically, I am just filled with nothing but hate, fury, disgust, all of the above, that I was told from an early age in my life to have pride in this country, to believe that it actually stood for freedom, but then basically to learn as I go that the people who claim to believe that this is in fact the greatest country are in fact the ones more than often responsible for continuing to make this country into not only a laughingstock, but are also responsible for the hypocrisy and the continuing hypocrisy of America being called the land of the free, but at the same time are more than willing to look over human rights abuses and civil rights abuses, and also look over the human rights abuses, to look over the atrocities that America has committed. That we are to look over the fact that more often than not, America has been, in one way or another, responsible for human rights abuses, not just here, but also responsible for leaders who commit human rights abuses internationally. And it's because of these many instances, these many problems that have happened. It would be one thing if we were actually working towards making America better than this, if we were actually on our way to stopping these kinds of things, that at some point or another we would acknowledge these wrongs, and that we would have stopped having these problems that continue to happen. But we aren't. And that's why I show a lot of disgust and disdain for the country I live in. And if there are any commenters that want to say, well, then why don't you just leave America? Well, first of all, I can't afford it. I can't afford the move to another country. I also cannot afford revoking my American citizenship, because that also costs money, in case you didn't know. But even further, if that's your excuse for trying to rebuke my criticism of this country, then you're not doing a really good job. If anything, you're only showing more of why it is so difficult to actually have any pride in America, because basically you're saying we aren't going to change anything about our country for the better. You're just going to have to deal with it, and if you don't like it, just leave. You're not actually trying to work to better the country. You're just accepting the status quo, and you're just going to leave it at that, and you're never going to try and improve anything that is wrong with the country. And that is what I find the most disgusting about people who claim themselves to be patriots. Because the thing about it is that I have to finish off this video so that I don't continue making this too long, because I definitely let out a lot of issues I have. But the thing I want to finish off this video on the most is what I believe the idea of loving someone or something is. And it's that not only do you acknowledge the faults of someone, you also want to help them become a better person. You want to help them in their journey of being someone better. That you want to help them not only feel good, that you not only want to be there to support them, but also that you want to be there to point out the flaws that they have. To be like, okay, yes, you do have these flaws. You do have these imperfections. I do still care about you. And that's why I want to help you. It's not simply just, you are this, you are these things that I do not like, but I'm still here for you, but I'm not going to help you get better. I mean, that can be viewed in one way as love, but to an extent, when it's so destructive, when it's so disastrous, and you are not going to actually do anything to help that person be a better person, then that's kind of where I say that's not love. That's just simply you're accepting the fact that they are going to continue to be this terrible person or this terrible thing. And while I may not be able to, and at this point, while I could be told to simply just leave the country, maybe they're right. I have thought about it. But at the same time, I've also wanted to dedicate myself to seeing some way where there's something I could make things better. I will admit there are things that I'm not doing right now that I probably could be doing, that I could be participating in a struggle more often. And I want to be able to do something about that. And I do have plans in the future, in the near future, to be able to be a part of something better. I am working on having the idea of having an internship for being in a federal position. And I do want to express the idea of being a representative. But at the same time, those are just simply ideas for the future, and right now, they're simply just plans. But I do still want to be a part of those. And I do want to be a part of trying to do something to make America better in some way or another. I have done what I could by signing petitions, but my one position is in that sort of extent can only do so much, and that's why I want to try and get to a better position so that my efforts can actually mean more. But that's basically all I have to say as of right now, and I hope that I was able to bring something of I hope I was able to inform everyone in a better way of what's going on, and that I'm able to at least provide something of essence, not only just to learn about something or to provide an education in something, but that maybe I may have inspired sort of some way a desire for a better change, that there will be something that we can all do together in this sort of situation. In fact, I would dare say crisis, because of how crazy things have gone, even at the beginning of 2021. So with that, I'm going to end this video. I know this has probably went along a bit longer than I thought, and I didn't really script any of this, so that's also part of why this may have taken longer, but I kind of work better without a script, especially for cases like this where a script probably wouldn't do it justice, really, in my opinion. That this is a situation where I believe you have to kind of speak from the heart. that you kind of have to talk about these things that you know about, and that because you are passionate enough about this, that this is something that you have to speak from within. It's something I learned from Martin Luther King's speeches, that he actually works better when he's off script instead of being on script, if you actually look at some of these speeches. But again, I'm kind of going a bit off topic, but in any case, that's pretty much all I have to say. So that's also kind of the downside of not working with a script, but that's pretty much all I have to say. So anyway, I hope you learned something from this video, and that I hope that it helps you understand things a little bit better, and why the news, especially as of recent, can be so disheartening and have you feel so distraught. I know it feels that way for me. But I do hope that things will get better, and that I will be more than happy to work for trying to make things better in some way or another. And with that, I'll be ending the video here and wishing you all a good day. So, bye!